Yeah, why not?
And there we are on YouTube. So there it is. I'm going to tweet that out here momentarily. And Sherwin, if you can keep our guest entertained for a moment.
Well, Rick, we're really glad to have you. Sorry that it didn't work out a few weeks ago when we were trying to have you on, and we tried to have Steve in your stead, and we still weren't able to make that happen because Rusty caught SARS or something in New Orleans.
Nasty. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, yeah. It was bad. I woke up and couldn't talk. I went into work and then promptly left work and came home.
He was like, yeah, I don't think we can do a show this week. I'm like, all right, well, I'll let everybody know.
I even told him, I was like, if you can find a way to record with Rick or Steve or whoever, I'll find a way to put it online, but it just wasn't going to work out. So anyway.
How was your vacation, by the way, Rick?
I tell you what, we drove, like I said on our podcast, we drove right at 2,000 miles in 5 days. So I think we kind of needed a vacation once we got back from vacation. My son and I, we had the best seats that I've ever had at a Major League ball game, and they were at Fenway. My son's a huge Red Sox fan. So that was kind of his graduation present, and but the rest of the trip was a little bit more relaxed. We didn't, have to get anywhere by any certain time like we did the ball game. So we spent some time in Cooperstown, and then in Gettysburg, which is probably my favorite place ever.
Cool.
Yeah, I watched your tweets as you guys were doing your little trip, and I was like, man, that's one cool trip right there.
Yeah.
Going to Fenway and going to Cooperstown and going to Gettysburg. That's really, really, really cool.
Yeah, that's a neat trip too, to string all that together.
Yeah.
Did you give some ish, Sherwin, to Comcast on Twitter?
Oh, yeah, I lit him up.
Okay, because Roger just trolled us. He said, let me take some time away from the ACC network and join y'all.
Yeah, I call them thieves.
Oh, that's awesome. We of course, we have our big game coming up, Rick. I say big game. I mean, Georgia Tech's probably going to get walloped by
Vegas says 36 points.
Yeah, by the reigning national champions. But that doesn't mean we don't want to watch it. And it's on ACC network, and they're pretty much failing to get that penetrated anywhere. Look at me using media words. That's a media word.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I used to now work in that space. I did for 15 years, but now I don't have to worry about that. Now it's hospitals and stuff.
Right.
Oh, man. So
now, have we started recording?
We're on YouTube, but we haven't started recording like the podcast proper yet. So there's folks hanging out on YouTube and can see it and everything.
Let me run this by you.
Okay. Look at that.
How about that?
National scene, August 29th, 2019. Are you kidding me?
Look at this. A brand new issue.
I wish we had smell-o-vision. I bet it smells good.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
So can we order that? Is that like...
I think we can buy it when we get to Darlington.
Is that right? Okay.
No, it's given out free at Darlington.
Okay. Well, we'll
sir.
Damn sure get a copy of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, giving out free, and also my Patreon supporters.
Oh, cool.
Who do $5 a month or more will get an issue.
That's awesome. I'm writing it in the show notes right now. Well, you remember how we do this thing. We kind of get started. We do our little intro. Might disappear for like 90 seconds or so, or we might even sound weird. But if you talk, the folks will hear you, and we don't edit. So if you're just like, hello, that'll be on the beginning of the podcast. And then you'll hear us bring you in and everything. We'll do our normal stuff. We'll just kind of talk about what you're up to. Definitely want to talk about the magazine there. We'll go into the report card. Since there was no race last weekend, I shouldn't say no race, since there was no cup race last weekend, got a few different types of stuff to talk about, and then we'll talk about Darlington, obviously plenty, and I think that's about it.
Sounds cool.
Awesome. Sherwin, you good?
Yeah.
All right. Let me cue up the music here. And Rick, do we have a hard stop tonight? You know how we do, about an hour or so, and
Yeah, that's fine.
And whatnot. Okay. And then also, as we tell all our guests, if you find yourself down a long path of a story, just keep on trucking. We're not, we don't have any timeline or anything like that for that stuff. And I keep an eye on the clock to, make sure we're not doing a 4-hour episode or anything. But, I can put stuff in and out. If there's a topic that's not as interesting as what you're talking about, then it'll just get cut. No biggie. Let me see if I can bring up the tunes here. Get that all set up. Make sure it's rocking and rolling. Sydney Lett doing her thing. Stop there. Bring it to about right there. I'll check levels here in a moment for that. And I check levels live. Just start recording and play with the sound bar till it looks right. So with that, I think we're ready to roll. Sherwin, you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
All right. Rick, you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. We'll talk to you in about 90 seconds. Recording now. Welcome, y'all! That's right. This is the Pregame Engineer Tailgate Mayor Racing Podcast, episode number 209. It's Tuesday, August 27th, 2019. I'm Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace. I'm in the PETM Podcast studio with Pregame Engineer Andrew Sherwin. What's up, dude?
Yeah, man, we tried to make this happen about 2 weeks ago and just didn't get it all figured out, but, we traversed our way around to getting it to happen.
Yeah, so really excited about our guest tonight. I was gravely ill that last time, and I've got one foot out of the grave and ready to rock and roll. Y'all know what the deal is. This podcast is sponsored by you. That's right. You go to patreon.com/PETM and join the What You Drink Club for as little as $1 a month and get that free koozie and some stickers. Best part is, every cent this year, we're once again donating to sponsored drivers. So join the PETM Posse today. Be a part of the sport you love. This week's show brought to you by our official sponsors at the $5 and up per month level. Here we go. Laura Henshaw, Aaron Beer, Robert Kevlicker, Coleman McClam, Eric Kepner, Ryan Kiefer, Patrick Cleary, Jeff Brown, Brendan Crow, Kathy McDonald, Stacey Wright, Brandon Carl, Rika Porter, John Bob, Les Miller, Julie Bowser, John Pearson, Eddie Greer, III, Younker Motorsports, David Mullins, Patrick Johnson, Brett Morris, Crystal Smoke, Fred Rosado, Chad Knapp, Stacey Coleman, Matthew Camper, Lisa Chanana, Rick Houston, Todd Oliver, and Sarah and Bari. Couldn't help myself on the Rick Houston part. That might be a little preview of what's to come.
Anecdotal.
Yeah, right. So without further ado, we've already said we're super excited about our guest tonight, making his PETM PhD appearance, Sherwin. He's a NASCAR historian and NASA author. The real...
Like, for real.
Like with space shuttles and stuff.
Like, he's a nerd neck like us.
Right on. Co-host of the Scene Vault podcast alongside Steve Wade. He's on Twitter at RickHouston73. It's Rick Houston. Rick, what's up?
How are you guys doing tonight?
We are doing excellent.
We're doing great. Thank you.
Yeah, we're super excited to talk, and you just showed us something in the pre-show there, and the folks on YouTube, what you got going on. Before we get to that, you know how we start this thing. What you drinking on tonight, Rick?
I'm drinking my hardcore diet Pepsi.
Well, we're going to have to get your address and send you a Diet Coke here from Atlanta, Georgia.
Right.
I'll send it right back.
You know what?
That's funny.
That's funny. So we'll call it fair. Sherwin, what do we got tonight?
We are sticking by our standard. We're holding the farm down with our Jim Beam White Label. And you got Coca-Cola, and I got White Claw, and it's tasty.
Yeah, a couple cold pops here, too, just to get us through. And, we're going to have a blast with it. With that, Rick, what is new in the Scene Vault? What's going on with the podcast? What's coming up?
Actually, this week, we're doing the last of our interview with Bobby Hillen. Okay. And then tomorrow, I'm headed down to Welcome to interview Andy Petrie.
Oh wow!
I can't wait for that.
So that's going to be a pretty cool interview, and then you never know what we might come up with.
I love Andy Petrie.
He's on my Mount Rushmore of NASCAR commentators.
Yeah, like I really wish we could have him back on somebody's commentating, group for NASCAR because he's so good.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. A student of the sport, and just he seems approachable. Just seems like a cool guy.
Well, he's a great interview. I talked to him for Dell versus Daytona, and of course, Andy was Dell's crew chief for his last 2 Winston Cup championships, and he was pretty open about some of the issues that he faced when he made the move over from Leo Jackson Motorsports to Richard Childress Racing. And, I'm looking forward to kind of revisiting that a little bit tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Well, I hope he opens up. I suspect he probably will, and he's got a lot to say. Like Rusty said, we really enjoyed him on those ESPN broadcasts that that he was a part of. I thought he was absolutely perfect for television.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't hold much back, if anything. So that's the kind of interview that you like.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. Sherwin, we might need to find his number and.
I want to say we have to figure out how to get him
podcast.
Yeah,
at some point.
That sounds like a great idea. I should probably investigate that.
Right. Rick, in the pre-show, you flashed up something there, and we want to hear about it.
Well, as you guys know, if you follow you guys definitely follow us on social media and Twitter. But since about January, Steve Wade and I have been working with Darlington Raceway, Kerry Tharp, and Dennis Warden, who is the PR person there. We have been working with them to produce a commemorative issue of Grand National Scene, which is the original title of what became Winston Cup Scene and then later NASCAR Scene. And there were a few hurdles that we had to clear, but yesterday Steve and I actually went down to Darlington, and we actually picked up our hard copies of the newspaper. So for the first time in 30 years, there is a brand new issue of Grand National Scene that has rolled off the presses, and it has been this December. It will have been a full 10 years since the most recent issue of the Scene brand was published, and to be able to have a small part in bringing that back, and giving fans the chance to get their hands on a brand new copy and kind of crack it open and see what we've been able to put together. That was a pretty special moment. It was pretty powerful when we went into the warehouse and saw the pallet of newspapers laying there, and finally to get our hands on it. But that was pretty cool. That was very cool.
That's extremely cool. And we can't wait to get our hands on our own copy of it this weekend when we head down to Darlington.
Absolutely. And a labor of love, just to pour it on, you got to be proud of that kind of thing. And you said small part in that. Heck, y'all were it won't happen without y'all.
Well, it's been kind of cool. Steve Wade and I have worked on this and laid it out. And, we've actually got brand new columns from several of our Scene writers that were at Scene at one time or another. Deb Williams contributed a column. Jeff Owens did. Kenny Bruce did. And so did Mark Ashenfelter.
That's so cool.
So, it's kind of their memories of Darlington. And, Steve Wade did one. And then, I did one to kind of lay out what we were trying to do. So, my hope is that somebody's going to see this publication and they're going to jump on board with what we're trying to do and maybe get them digitized, maybe get them preserved, and possibly at some point down the road made available online. And that's been my goal ever since from day one in this entire process, is to somehow see these newspapers preserved and then to be made available. And there's a lot of legal stuff, legal crap that you have to deal with, but the precedent is out there.
That's great. I obviously we're super supportive of the Scene Vault and what you guys are doing to preserve the history of NASCAR and bring us content that we otherwise wouldn't necessarily get. So this is such a cool thing. I mean, like I don't even know how to describe to you how much I love what you're doing, you and Steve, to bring us this historical perspective of NASCAR, and then also try to get it to the next step.
Everything about it is perfect. The way that it aligns with the Throwback weekend, I can't imagine the amount of not just work, but the hurdles having to go through, to get that name on it, to get all the people together to write columns for it. And in this day and age, with everything being digital and all that, to have like a physical media copy of something, that's really cool too. And did I see on Twitter that y'all had like handed out a few of the newspapers over there at a local watering hole or something, and everybody's just pouring over it.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. There, every small town in America has a local place where people gather to kind of chew the fat in the mornings and kind of wake up and get their day started. And certainly we have that here in the town where I live. And there are several race fans that kind of gather up there. It's actually just come to think of it, it's actually just a few miles from where Junior Johnson used to live in our county. And so there are a couple of Junior Johnson's buddies that hang out up there. And so in the past couple of years, 2 or 3 years since Junior moved away, kind of the conversation has drifted away from NASCAR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are you? So do you live in that Yadkinville?
I live in Yadkinville, North Carolina. Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's East Wilkes County, which is
No, sir.
Uh-oh. No. Don't offend him.
You better take that back.
Uh-oh.
We live in Yadkinville is in Yadkin County.
Oh, I apologize. To all the listeners and to you.
Goodness. How are things down there in South Carolina?
So I made a boo-boo, y'all.
So can you give us maybe a teaser, a headline? That was something with the NASCAR Scene magazine. If you go back and you look at all the old ones, it felt like that front page really got you in. And every time I open one up, somebody's got a stash of them. I am amazed at how quality every page is, every line, every headline, everything is something I want to read. You know what I mean? There's no fluff in there. There's no just piece to fill out pages. And so are there some headlines you can tease us with?
Oh, absolutely. And it's been announced from the very start that kind of Darlington's focus this year for the Throwback weekend is on David Pearson, who is obviously a South Carolina native, and also the era 1990 through 94. So the cover image is of David Pearson in Victory Lane after his 1979 his 1979 Darlington Southern 500 victory. And he's sitting on the hood of the car that he drove, and it's Dale Earnhardt's number 2 Osterland car. And everybody remembers that Dale had been hurt during his rookie season and missed a couple of races, and David Pearson came in and just did very, very, very well, culminating with the win at Darlington. And Dale Earnhardt somehow miraculously made his way back into the car less than a week later.
Right.
And
wow.
So I've always kind of laughed that he was concerned about losing his ride. But that's kind of the lead story. There's also a story, 1990. Dale Earnhardt won the Southern 500, 1991. The story is on Harry Gant's Southern 500 victory, and that was the first of 4 straight wins for him that year. So certainly that was a very memorable win. 1992, Darrell Waltrip won his very last Winston Cup race. And 93 is, I think, kind of a special story. It was a sidebar to the main race lead. But Alan Kowicki finished 6th in the 1993 Trans-South 500. And normally that wouldn't be anything to, raise an eyebrow about. But the very last sentence in this sidebar is a line that says something to the effect of, "There will be a day when we will be better."
Mm.
Wow.
And the issue date on this issue is April the 1st, 1993.
Yeah. So your podcast really hit me hard today when I listened to it, because that interview and that article it was published the same day that Alan died, correct?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard hitting right there.
Wow.
And then for that, and I keep going back to that last line that says, there will be a day when we'll be better. And depending on how you look at it, there was a day when he was better. So.
Yeah.
Well, he was better at Atlanta in 1992.
Yeah.
Well, you want to have a tearjerker here, man. That's heavy stuff.
I know. Hey, wipe your eyes.
Woo, look out. So, obviously, going into this throwback weekend at Darlington, and you being a historian of the sport and a student of the sport, I'm wondering if there's a good, maybe a juicy Darlington story that sticks out in your mind from the, I don't know, either recent or historical past there.
Could be Cole Trickle.
As it turns out.
Well, all I know to say is the press box at Darlington used to be in turn 1.
Yep.
It's now in turn 3. And it overlooks the fans in kind of the chicken bone section of the campground.
Cool.
And it was always very, very interesting to see what might have been going on in that campground.
Boy, you really churched that one up pretty good.
I'll just leave that to your imagination, and then double what your imagination might be. So yeah, it was quite interesting.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. We usually like to sit in high up in the Pearson section in turn 4, just because you can almost see the whole track the way you can see the whole track if you sit in the Kowicki section at Bristol. Like Darlington, for some reason, just seems like a much smaller racetrack than Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, even though it's not, it's not that
less.
Yeah, it's not that much smaller, but like you really can see the whole racetrack from down there. And of course, the front stretch. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously not trying to offend anybody at Darlington, especially not Kerry Tharp, but on the front stretch, you lose the cars when they exit turn 4. Yeah. Because of the angle of the grandstands. Yeah. And you don't see them again until turn 1. But in turn 4, you get to see them almost bust their asses in turn 3 and 4, and then go all the way down the front stretch, and then go into turn 1 and 2.
Yeah, and I think we got some seats in 1 and 2 there, or in 1 or something this time.
Yeah, so, yeah, we do.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit different view. We'll talk a little bit more about Darlington in a moment, but before then, y'all know what the deal is. We're going to break it down. Time to tear it down with the report card. So, first period. Let's talk paint schemes. We're going to talk about Darlington again. Why not?
Well, it's throwback.
That's right. Throwback paint scheme time. Rick, I'm sure you've poured over the paint schemes and everything. What are some of your highlights, some of your favorites?
Two that truly do stand out to me are Bubba Wallace's tribute to Adam Petty. When I saw that, it kind of triggered me a little bit because I just have memories of that car on the racetrack, and kind of talking to Adam when I covered his career in the Busch Series, and that's a very cool paint scheme. It's very accurate. It looks almost exactly like the paint scheme that Adam ran his first year in the Busch Series. And then the other one another one that kind of jumped out to me is the 00 Cole Custer car.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I saw that one.
with
I saw that one
Buckshot.
today.
And if you want to hear stories, I could tell you some stories about Buckshot and some of the practical jokes that we kind of played on each other. But it kind of culminated with him throwing his birthday cake in my face at Pikes Peak, and then to seek retribution. And Jerry Punch would deny it to this day, but he is the one that kind of instigated the payback. We got to Michigan later that same year, and he asked me if I had done anything to kind of get my revenge, and I told him no. And so he got Matt Yoakum, and Matt and I basically set up a fake interview with Buckshot on ESPN at that time, and we set it up to the point where he was facing away from the garage entrance, and while Matt was interviewing him on ESPN, I came behind Buckshot and whacked him in the face with a whipped cream pie.
That is awesome.
I would give anything for that footage. I used to have a tape of it. I don't know what's became of it. But the footage is pretty priceless because, once Buckshot kind of collected his senses about him and realized what had happened, he looked at Matt and he goes, "I'm going to get you back." And then he looked at me and said, "I'm definitely going to blankety blank 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 get you back." And I mean, it was just pretty funny. And at that point, it was I don't want to say getting out of hand a little bit, but yeah, it was time to kind of stop that in its tracks, I guess. But Buckshot is going to be there on Saturday.
I love it. I love it.
So, if a whipped cream pie happens to make an appearance in the Darlington garage, I may or may not have anything to do with it.
We'll be on the lookout.
Yeah, we will.
As it turns out.
Definitely.
So speaking of 00 car, the Coors Light throwback, which is, have you seen that one, Sherwin?
Yeah, the Cup car. Yep.
Yeah. Landon Castle driving that. Looks pretty cool.
It looks exactly like Sterling Marlin's Coors Light car.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And I think the folks at Miller Genuine Draft, they do such a good job with all their throwbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Brad Keselowski's throwback, I mean, is just beautiful.
Yeah. That was actually next on my list too.
Yeah. So there are some great cars that are going to be there, and there are some other cars that probably aren't going to hit the mark quite as closely.
Participation awards.
Yeah, well, I don't even know if they get that. So
yeah.
But you're going to have that.
Well, we got to talk. Maybe it's in your list, but the Chevy City car.
Which one? Talk to me.
The
William Byron
City Chevrolet. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Byron, the Days of Thunder car.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. That
thing looks bad ass.
It does. Yeah, excited for that one. Say what you will about the driver, but Newman's Oscar Mayer car looks pretty cool. Hemrick has the number 8 Caterpillar car, and the Caterpillar lettering and colors are from the 1920s. Like, it was one of those hand-drawn, because they didn't have screen print and all that back, or maybe they did, but this was like the hand-lettered thing. That's pretty cool. Chase has the 1981 number 9 Napa, which is kind of neat.
That is neat.
Yep. Obviously, I looked this stuff up, so I kind of do know some of the stuff. Boyer's car. Now he threw back to Tony's car in 2011, which when it was Tony's championship car, and I'm like, whatever on that. But it's the exact car. They got all the right sponsors and everything. It is the exact
same car.
Tony Stewart 2011 car. There is no difference. Wood Brothers has Paul Menard's car, 21 car, inspired by the 1957 Ford Sunliner. So that's kind of neat. And you mentioned Days of Thunder. So that's fun stuff. So those are the ones that I think
a lot of people, I don't know what the age range of our audience is, but William Byron's car is an absolute replica of the 46 car that Cole Trickle drove in the movie that Rick Hendrick built. And a lot of people don't realize that Rick actually built all the cars that were racing to create that movie.
Oh,
and that's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, Steve Letarte was on Dale Jr.'s podcast, and they were kind of giving him a hard time because he had never seen Days of Thunder before.
Yep, this is true.
How do you get a job in this sport and having never seen Days of Thunder? That was just beyond me. He hadn't seen Stroker Ace.
Oh, my God.
If he hadn't seen either one of those movies, they ought to kick him out now. I mean, that should be some kind of NASCAR suspension.
You gotta imagine at some point, like one of the spotters or somebody quoted the movie and it went right over his head. Like I want you to hit the pace car, just something like that.
Well, and Steve's our age, like so he's not old and he's not young.
But he's in the he's Mama Bear here.
I think he's my age. I think he's 38.
Yeah, so he's like right in the right wheelhouse for that kind of thing, for sure. Yeah, that's kind of wild. Rick, you blew my mind there. Now I'm not even sure where to go. So we'll go to second period. This one from NBC Sports. I'll back it up a second, and I mean we've got a hell of a silly season coming up, Sherwin. We've got DiBenedetto, Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, Ross Chastain, Cole Custer, essentially all of SHR that
pretty much
stuff could happen. One of the questions they brought up: should NASCAR consider expanding the team size, given the talent or the talent pool right now that's coming up? It was kind of a discussion point that I thought, maybe we ought to have that, and maybe we ought to start with Rick and see what his thoughts are.
I don't. I'm old school. I don't think that expanding the team size would be a good idea. I think that right now the tail is kind of wagging the dog on teams and NASCAR. I would personally like to see some kind of model put in place where a team like the 95 team can survive without support from whatever major team. I mean, look what happened with Martin Truex's team. They won the championship, and Joe Gibbs basically doubled the price of doing business, and it basically drove them out of business. So I'm always going to be on the side of the underdog. I think that certain teams already have enough power, if not too much power. And that's just coming from me, and I'm certainly, when it comes to today's breaking news, I'm completely on the outside looking in. I just kind of hear what other guys and ladies who are in the garage now are reporting. But I don't know. I would like to go back to the days where a Bill Baumgartner could make an impact in the sport. Certainly, Buckshot's dad, who could come back in. But yeah, I don't know about expanding the size of the teams. I don't know about that.
That's an interesting perspective. I think one of the things that we've discovered as a part of this process is that we have an audience that ranges from age 18 to age 75, and they all have varying different opinions on how NASCAR should proceed.
And if you're 76, you can just go jump in the lake. No.
But we did have a period of time when the Roush cars, they had 5 and they all made the playoffs. And I don't know that was necessarily bad for the sport. But I also agree that it would be nice if a single car team could really, find their way and get some work done and have some success. So it's like, I'm not sure what to say. Like, I want as many good cars on the racetrack as we can get. If, Hendrick or SHR thought they could field a fifth car full time that would be a good car for a good driver, or Joe Gibbs for that matter, I'm sure they'd love to field a fifth car for, what's happening with the 95.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not so sure that some of these teams aren't already fielding.
That's fair.
4 and 5 cars.
Yeah.
Because of their technical alliances. It may be XYZ motorsports, but if their cars and their technology and their, whatever is coming from the multi-car mega team, it's XYZ Motorsports in name only. That's basically a Hendrick Motorsports South.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what we're looking at with what RCR is doing with the Sieg organization. Is even though those cars are maybe 1 or 2 generations behind what they're, what RCR is running in Xfinity, Ryan Sieg Racing, they're running RCR cars with RCR technology. They're just not, the chassis are 2 years old.
Yeah. I think we're all in alignment here in that it would kind of be a Band-Aid on a bigger wound, right? The Band-Aid would be, hey, we're fixing this thing where we've got all these talented drivers that we need to, pull into the sport. But the bigger wound being, just like Rick just said, look at the 95 team and look at the owner, who is so much fun to talk to on Twitter and has really made a presence, Bob Levine. It's super cool what a team like that has going on. That's what we need more of, and that's where you kind of see somebody like a Ross Chastain, who we talk about all the time. But if he's looking to align with somebody, I could see him going, that's where I want to be. It was with somebody like Bob, just with his style and stuff. So,
I would like to see Bob Levine.
Yeah, I say it wrong every time, just like Kelly
Levine.
Crandall.
Yeah. I would like to see him get to the point where his rides are not dictated by somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
He's put a lot of money into Matt DiBenedetto this year, and obviously they've had some success.
Yep.
And I would like for Bob to be able to say, you know what, I'm sticking with Matt.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got the resources, and I don't need this big mega operation telling me who I'm going to put in the car or suggest who I'm going to put in the car.
I love the discussion, by the way, that the folks on YouTube are doing right now. Jumpy Bob's saying it's all about the alliances. Sorry. And I mean, I think he's right in a way. And then Mick Rose just said more manufacturers will produce more competitive teams. I'm liking where you're going with that too, Mick. So it's really cool. Folks are talking about this. This gets people excited,
Yeah. Well, so Bob roasted me over DM because I said something a little short-sighted and poignant about people not investing in Matt DiBenedetto, and he told me how much money he had spent, and I said, Bob, that's not really where I was going with that. I apologize if that offended you. And then he gave me the phone number of his PR person.
What a guy. Yeah, that's fun. We'll move on to third period. NASCAR announcing kind of the new rules for Cup drivers in the lower series. Now it's going to be any Cup regular with 3 years at the top level. This year's 5 years. Can only run 5 races in Xfinity and trucks. Used to be 7 in Xfinity and 5 in trucks, I think. So now it's 5 and 5, and it's down to 3 years. So, even I think like Eric Jones might not even qualify.
Well, it should be like if you have a win in Cup. There shouldn't be a year restriction.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. I've gone back and forth so many times on this, but I feel like, I'm getting goosebumps. Here they come. In the last 2 years, I think it took how to say this. I think it took the Cup regulars in those series for a few years to really bring attention to those series, bring the people out there. And now the talent pool and the type of racing and the kind of racing that we have with all these folks that we just talked about, Reddick and Bell and Chastain and Custer, all this cool stuff to watch over here in Xfinity and trucks. They've made the name for themselves, and I think that's somewhat...
They built it back up.
Yeah, on the backs of the guys who've been there. And so for a while there, I was all about, like, hey, let Cup regulars race in any race. I don't care. But now I'm sort of switching lanes here and kind of saying I'm more okay with restricting this a bit more now that we've sort of built this thing up. So I'm cool with this. Rick, where do you stand?
Well, listen, when I was at Scene, I was the Busch Series editor, and I banged that drum so hard for so long that something needed to be done to restrict the number of Cup guys who raced in what was then the Busch Series, what's now the Xfinity Series. And I like the direction that they're headed. I used to enjoy so much the summer swing when we would go to tracks, when we would kind of break away and do standalone events at tracks like Gateway and Pikes Peak and certainly Nashville and some of those tracks, because during that summer swing, you knew that a Busch guy, what would now be an Xfinity guy, driver, was going to win. Because you could basically, if Mark Martin was in the race, you could basically just go ahead and start writing your race lead before the race ever started.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just a done deal. And today, certainly it's the same thing with Kyle Busch. If Kyle Busch is in the race, barring something out of the ordinary happening, something crazy happening, he's going to win.
Yeah.
And to me, that's not. I don't want to take anything away from Kyle, but that's not a great story. It's a story that was told last week and the week before and the week before and so on and so forth. So I like the fact that NASCAR is moving towards some of these restrictions and allowing some other younger talents like Christopher Bell, and Ross Chastain and those guys, Cole Custer. I like the fact that they're kind of getting the spotlight a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any distaste for that perspective at all. I think when we really got watching this sport, Rick, what we saw a lot of it was guys like Kevin Harvick and Clint Boyer and some more guys like that going down and running those races. Even Jeff Burton would run some races for RCR. And I don't know that it really took away from what the race was, but it feels like that we've migrated to a place where, those guys are running the best cars that are there. And so that kind of takes away from what that series is.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And, and I think that's been an issue basically since probably the late 1980s, through to today. I think when the Busch Series first started, you had Cup guys who were coming in with Dale Earnhardt and, a couple other guys. But Dale Earnhardt fielded his own equipment. And he was running it out of the shop
same with Dale Jarrett,
the house where he grew up. And so the field was a little bit more level. But then when you had Cup teams coming in and fielding equipment and using it as basically a test bed for their Cup program, that's when you saw the dominance really start to creep in. Roush Racing, man, they had it, they had it going on in the Cup Series at that time, and also, I think, due in large part to what they were doing in the Busch Series with Mark Martin and Jeff Burton, because when Jeff Burton was in the race, if Mark didn't win, Jeff was going to.
Yeah.
So as it has evolved, I think it got away from being a pure competition and just racing for number one. I think it just became at a certain point, it became kind of a test bed for the Cup programs. And I think I got out of it. I think I got out of it at a pretty good time, because if I had been covering the division at the time when the Cup guys were coming down into the Busch Series and running full time and winning championships, I would have lost my freaking mind. Because I just don't think that was a good look at all. Period. Yeah.
Okay. So here's one of the things that I've gotten the most vitriol on Twitter about, Rick, is how is a Cup team supposed to develop crew chiefs and over-the-wall guys and car chiefs and drivers in a lot of respect without doing what they're doing in the Xfinity Series?
That's a good question. And that's part of the equation. But there, you can form alliances like, it's what's happening on so much on the Cup side. That's a good question. I don't know that I've really considered what the best solution to that might be. I think you send those guys to in my day, a Buckshot Racing, and let them work for Buckshot Racing. Loan them out, farm them out. Certainly there are teams there that need the help. So if you're talking about just the crew members that you see might have a future in the sport, yeah, send them down, send them to the minor leagues, let them get seasoning, just like the drivers are getting on the racetrack. But as far when it comes to the equipment and the engineering, maybe leave that out of it a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, I can buy that.
Well, with that, let's move on to fourth period. Dale Jr. confirming. I mean, we already knew he was planning on running the Xfinity race here at Darlington. Now confirming after the whole, been in a plane crash deal, that he still plans to run Xfinity race, saying his back is pretty freaking bruised up, it sounds like. But either way, plane crash or not, what a great it's awesome to hear, first off, but what a great value for the fans and everything. I mean, I can't imagine something better. I was surprised because I kind of messed around and didn't get tickets to Darlington until we were driving to Bristol. I think we talked about it last week, but I was surprised that we kind of had, I wouldn't say the pick of seats that we, wherever we wanted. Yeah, well, what time's the race start? When can you show up? It wasn't like that, but I just really feel like I guess to round this out, that is such a cool deal and a great value. I just want to talk about value.
Well, I think
for the fans
and that's sort of that pairs so well with what we were just talking about Cup drivers in Xfinity or trucks, is that Junior racing one race that he wants to race puts three serious sponsors on his cars. And so I think that's a thing that a lot of fans don't understand, is how much value him doing that brings. Rick, you got an opinion on that?
I do. I don't know that you want to hear it.
Oh, of course we want to hear it. I don't.
Always. Yeah, you don't have to agree.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah, you're drinking on Pepsi right now.
I'm going to be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand the sponsorship value. Yes, I understand the fact that Dale Earnhardt is still NASCAR's most popular figure. But Dale Earnhardt doesn't owe anybody anything.
Sure.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. doesn't owe anybody anything. And guys, he is less than 2 weeks out from a plane crash. If that had been me, no, I wouldn't even be considering coming back to the racetrack anytime soon. Especially, with the physical issues that he's had in the past, with the concussions and everything. If there's even a question about his back, no, I'm not getting anywhere near that car at Darlington. And Kerry Tharp may hear that, and he may go to the warehouse and he may burn every single one of those Grand National settings.
They are made of some pretty flammable paper, as it turns out.
Yeah, absolutely. They would make a good bonfire. I can tell you that. But to just to just think about what it would have been like to be on that plane.
Yeah.
Think about what it was like to be on that plane, and then consider business interests.
Mm-hmm.
Those business interests don't matter after going through something like that.
Sure.
And if it was me, if I had Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s ear, I would say, listen, buddy, you can do what you want to. If you want to race, that's fine. But you've got your health to consider. You've got your family to consider. We love you. We respect you. And don't feel like you have to get in that car.
Yeah,
I think I would totally agree with with all of that, and I think that's a part maybe when I was introducing this topic that I just sort of took for granted, which was, hey, Dale Jr. is still racing. Let's talk about him racing. But you're absolutely right in that he certainly doesn't know anybody anything. So him coming to it, I don't know what the decision-making process is there, or if he feels whether he feels like he owes somebody something or not. Who knows? For me, it's more, hey, cool, Dale Jr.'s racing, and how much value that brings to sport and stuff, or brings to that ticket and everything else. But yeah, I mean, you definitely you bring up a point that is incontrovertible.
Right. Well, so the only thing I would say is, and I don't know Dale Jr. Dale Jr. is not a friend of mine. What I would say is that based on reading his book, which I did finish, and I listened to every one of his podcasts ever, what I would say is I don't think he would make a decision detrimental to his family by getting in the race car. So I think he's probably okay.
Yeah. And, I certainly don't hang out with Dale Jr. I've not, hung out with him in years, and didn't necessarily hang out with him then. I was around him certainly, on a regular basis, in the garage and other places. But, I don't know. If he wants to race for himself, certainly, I think that he was looking forward to driving that blue number 8 car. That's kind of the throwback to his dad's very first Cup car. I know that he was looking forward to driving the Gray Ghost throwback that he wasn't able to, but if he's okay and he's physically able, that's one thing. But I don't know, man. I hate to fly commercial just because I find it harder to be a person of faith in an airport than any other place on the face of the earth. But I've also never been through a plane crash.
Sure.
And this wasn't a minor bump up.
Right.
This was a plane crash.
Right.
And to me, I almost have stress just thinking about it. And
Rusty's a pilot, so he knows.
Yeah. Well, I try not to crash the plane most of the time. I think there's almost a mental precedent here, if I recall. Now, time will make my memory hazy on this, and that's something that Rick definitely has an advantage over all of us in his memory of these things. But if we remember back when he was in that wreck in that Corvette,
the fire
and all that,
yeah,
and I seem to recall him wanting to get back quickly, and didn't he win that a race soon after that in the number 3 of all things? Like, wasn't that something crazy?
No,
that
was
or?
04 when he got set on fire, and then he won like 6 races that year.
Yeah, yeah. So in other words, there's kind of this. I'm saying there that he's at least got a precedent. Now that's 15 years ago. 04 was. So this ain't the same. Physically Dale Jr. It's not the same mentally Dale Jr. He's got a wife and a kid, which he didn't have back then.
Well, now he's actually healthy.
Well, there's that too.
yeah.
Fair. So anyway, we'll move on. Let's go to fifth period. Brett Moffitt. Let's talk about trucks. Let's talk about playoffs.
Playoffs.
Brett Moffitt with 2 wins in the first 2 races of the trucks playoffs, and not just like Vegas and Atlanta or something. We're talking about Bristol, and we're talking about road course. Was that
Mosport?
Yeah, Mosport Park. And
he whooped everybody's ass at Mosport.
Right. What does the rest of the field need to do at this point to catch up to him? Ross Chastain is I wouldn't say close second, because Ross Chastain has 0 wins and Brett Moffitt has 2.
He's minus 22 points.
But he seems fairly safe in getting to the next round. Assuming crazy happens in Vegas.
He's getting the next round.
Yeah, playoff standings are pretty crazy. 5 teams within about 6 points of each other. So there's a lot going on in the mid.
And they don't race again for like 4 weeks or something.
Something crazy. Yeah, it's Vegas. When's the Vegas race? I
Third,
can't remember.
3 weeks.
Yeah.
The week after Indy.
So pretty crazy stuff going on in the trucks playoffs. But question being, what does the field have to do at this point to catch up to Brett Moffitt? I guess that's it, Sherwin.
Yeah, I don't even know what.
Lap.
Yeah, I'd rather just kick it to Rick.
Go for it, Rick. You've seen this before.
Listen. I'm not your truck expert. Yeah, if you're trying to catch up to anybody, that's the great unanswerable question.
Mm-hmm.
That team obviously has it going on right now. Maybe they've pulled a Jimmy Johnson, Chad Canals, and held all their cards pretty close to the vest until the playoffs start. But yeah, all you can do is dig deep and try your best.
Yeah,
beat them.
Wait on them to make a mistake, and they won't make a mistake.
You got to beat them.
Yeah,
that's it.
You got to put it to it.
Hats off to Gallagher Motorsports. They've done a good job building good trucks.
So we'll go to recess from NASCAR.com. They posted earlier. I mean, it's easy to find this stuff, but when it's in when it's a nice tabulated form, it works out well. Fastest lap at every track ever. That posted. So I thought that this was interesting. Now I say ever, I mean like in a car that was that passed the inspection,
and was going to race in the race.
Yeah, all that stuff. So Rick, maybe this will be a nice little pop quiz. I've got the oldest record here for any track. Do you perhaps recall what the oldest record for fastest lap at a track that still stands today? What that would be?
The oldest record. I'm not sure what you're getting at.
So
what are you looking for?
The fastest lap record that is held for the longest time at this point.
I would assume Talladega. Bill Elliott.
Booyah! He's
still the fastest.
Still the best.
1987, and it's one that's never going to be broken.
So 100% correct on that. 212.817, I think.
212. That's the only one I wrote down was 212. But evidently, earlier that year. Now, I'm gonna commend you both on having the knowledge there. But earlier that year, same dude, Bill Elliott, set the record at Daytona, 210 miles an hour. Now, 212 is the fastest lap in the history, if you will. But earlier that same year, 1987, February, fastest lap at Daytona ever. To this day is 210 miles an hour by Bill Elliott.
All right.
And then later on in the same year, 212 miles an hour at Talladega.
Well, here's what's crazy is when they first went to Darlington in 1950, I want to say, or 1950 or 51, the first race there, average speed leader ran 89 miles an hour, I think. Somewhere around in there.
That's crazy. So double that and add on half of a car and go crazy. So yeah, Daytona Talladega, 1987, oldest record, or oldest still, held up record, Bill Elliott. So, newest records. We've got 3 new records so far this year, Sherwin.
Do we have anything results from the Salt Flats with the unrestricted Talladega car?
Oh, I don't know. Rick, did you hear anything about that?
I have not. No.
Okay,
because
we talked about it last week, but we didn't.
The record with a car that could actually pass inspection was 249, but Bob Keselowski ran with a car that was a little tweaked. He ran like 266. So
question.
They were wanting to break 270, I think.
And just shut the door on any sort of question on whether or not it would
it's
work.
already happened, but it hasn't really hit the news as far as I'm aware.
So yeah, we'll see soon. Newest records, like I said, there's 3 new records this year, Sherwin.
Yes.
One at Sonoma, Larson. At Sonoma. Now, not impressive, but 95.9 miles an hour around Sonoma.
Dude,
think about the paperclip where they're doing freaking 30 miles an hour.
They used to qualify at 91 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Think about how much faster
4 miles an hour
average is.
Yeah. So that one's pretty wild. Here you go, close to home. Chase Elliott, Dover this year, 165.9 mile an hour lap at Dover.
And Dover used to be a 160 mile an hour track for a long time.
And then in April, early this year, Blaney at Bristol. So Bristol Spring.
Did he run something in the 14s?
132 miles an hour. I'd have to divide and carry the one and all that.
Because 126 used to be like the mark.
Right. And 132 miles an hour at Bristol. I was surprised.
That's a modified number.
Yeah, with the freaking wing and all the.
He probably did break 15. He was right at breaking into the 14s. I guarantee you.
Yeah, and
132 miles an hour at Bristol is just crazy. I had the chance to do driving schools. I was doing some. Reviews of the different driving schools for Stock Car Racing magazine, and
they didn't have to pull your arm too hard to do that, right?
What's that?
They didn't have to pull your arm too hard to go. Well, I want you to go run some hot laps at these 10 tracks.
It was actually my idea. I went to the editor, and I said, I think it would be such a cool idea. There are so many different of these driving schools. Why don't you let me go to all of them? And I'll do reviews on all of them. And that idiot fell for it. I got to do a couple of different driving schools at Charlotte. I got to drive one of the schools at Bristol. I did Atlanta at one time, and I also did the Del Jarrett School at Talladega. And Talladega, of all the things I've ever done in my career, driving at Talladega was probably the highlight because that was pretty cool. And my lap speeds, I certainly wasn't going to qualify for a cup race or even an ARCA race or anything like that because of the school cars.
Turtle race or
but
pig race.
I was doing 164 mile an hour laps. My fastest speed at the end of the backstretch was 178. But it was just like driving on the interstate. It really was. I mean, because there was nothing really to gauge that speed off of.
Yeah.
But when I did the school at Bristol, I felt the sensation of speed 10 times more at Bristol than I did at Talladega, and my lap speeds were maybe 92, 93, 94 miles an hour.
Yeah. I believe that 100%. I had a couple friends.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I had a couple friends do the Indy deal at Atlanta, and this was way after Indy race was at Atlanta, and they hit 170, and it was like you don't even know what that is.
Yeah. No, I've talked about it before. Going to Richmond and hitting. This wasn't an 80-mile-an-hour lap. This was hitting 80 miles an hour in a rental car on the backstretch, and I felt like this is fixing to be out of control.
Right.
I can't imagine. That's
You don't want to turn right in a rental car because you'll end up at the fence.
yeah. So no, that's cool though. That Bristol really gives you that perspective of the.
Well, it's that
what you're
washing
doing
machine
and the speed.
thing. I mean, there's
yeah.
a reason why they say it's flying fighter jets in a gymnasium. Like, there's a reason why they call it that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, at Talladega, I felt like I was in control of the car. You know, because it was just like a big interstate, and it was so wide. And there were very few other cars on the racetrack. And when I did catch up to other cars, it was very gradual. But at Bristol, I felt like I was behind the car the entire time that I was on the racetrack.
Yeah.
And that wasn't very comfortable.
Yep.
Yeah. And Sherwin, close to home, Atlanta Motor Speedway, November 1997, 197.478.
I think his name was Jeff Bodine, right?
Jeff Bodine.
Yeah.
So
on new pavement.
Yeah.
And we saw Elliott Sadler lay down a 194.
I think we saw
Newman also
I was
laid
gonna
down.
say, I thought Newman ran a 194 at one point.
Yeah,
which was crazy because the race speeds was like 191, and they were qualifying at 194. It was nuts.
Atlanta is
how they were doing that. Yeah.
It was fast on new pavement.
Yeah, it was.
It was crazy fast.
So Sherwin, you posted a PETM poll earlier, and I want to get Rick Houston's thoughts on this. Rick, the PETM poll was just pick one of these. It's either Robert Duvall and Tom Cruise or Burt Reynolds and Jerry Reed, which goes perfect into what you were talking about before about Steve Letarte and the movies and everything that he hasn't seen. But Robert Duvall, Tom Cruise, or Burt Reynolds, Jerry Reed is kind of like the movie combo here.
Burt Reynolds and Jim Neighbors.
Oh, yeah, Stroker Ace.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. Option C. I love it.
I got a lot of those, actually. We've got a lot of those tweets.
Yeah.
They're like, why did you leave this one out? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not old.
Yeah, we're just having fun. It's all good. I love Stroker Ace. Quick new follower shout out on the YouTube. Dude, fella named Derek Gobble.
Derek Gobble.
Derek, if you're listening right now, thank you for hanging out with us. Sherwin, let's gas it up. Hold on. There it is. There you go. We've been talking Darlington pretty much this whole time. So
we cannot wait to get to Darlington.
Darlington is so much fun.
Friday morning, we're going to set sail.
Yeah. And we were talking about this. There's something about the night, or there's something about the 4-day weekend or 3-day weekend thing.
Well, especially when they're night races too, because you got like all day to get your stuff in one pile.
So we get there Friday. Well, first off, Thursday we're watching the Georgia Tech Clemson game somewhere, and then Friday we drive out there. We hit River Rat Brewing on the way.
Oh yeah,
in Columbia, and then head on into.
We need to text.
Whitler.
Yeah,
Jeffrey.
When we hit about Augusta and say, hey, we're like an hour and 15 minutes away.
That's right. Time to come have a beer with us. So we're doing that, and then we'll head on to Darlington from there. That's going to be awesome. Looking forward to it. Rick, are you going to the race?
I am.
By God.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm looking forward to it.
Well, let's hook up.
Have you ever been to one of the tweet ups, Rick?
I have not.
I would recommend it.
Well, actually, we're going to have a tweet up to distribute some of these newspapers.
Yes.
Okay, let us know where it is and what you're doing and when it is, and we will absolutely promote the hell out of it.
And
it is 3 p.m. On Saturday or on Sunday before the Cup race, and I guess in front of the Bojangles tent. From what I've been
Bojangles
told.
Okay.
tent.
Well, we love some Bojangles.
That's
So,
right.
yeah.
I owned stock in Bojangles for several months till they went private, and I made 20% on my money, dadgummit.
We will be there and get to meet you in person.
That'll be awesome. I'm looking forward to that. Sherwin, after all that, last week we made some picks for the Xfinity race.
Oh, yeah, we did.
You picked Dinger. He ended up 24th.
Yeah, not good.
David Smith picked Austin Cindric, who got second. Rusty might have picked Christopher Bell. I get my horn in right there.
Foghorn.
There it is. Christopher Bell won the race. I was pretty excited about that. So with that, it is time to make some picks for the Cup race this coming weekend at Darlington. So, Rick, give us your throwback pick right here. Who you got for the Cup race?
I'm going with Chase.
Oh,
Damn it. That's who I was going to
I'm putting like multiple exclamation points after Chase right there. I love that pick. Sherwin,
That's who I was going to pick.
I mean, that's yeah. What can you say? Don't pick my guy though that I want to pick.
I'm going to pick somebody that our audience would never believe that I would pick, but I'm going to pick Denny Hamlin to go back to back at Darlington.
Oh man, I'm going to put WTF after that pick as well.
For sure, add a lot of cuss words.
Yeah. Let's see. I am going to look back at our. Okay, well I got to pick William Byron then.
Yeah. That car is so awesome.
The Days of Thunder car of William Byron.
First win, that would be so cool.
That would be probably impossible. But I'm going based on how many people pick in March Madness, like which team colors you like the best. I gotta go.
Which mascot?
yeah, exactly. So which mascot could beat up the other mascot and all that. Quick shout outs. Our friends over at MOATF. Hey, y'all didn't release an episode this week, and I'm jonesing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no kidding.
So get on the ball. And release you an episode.
I guarantee you, there's already a new lap traffic episode already available on the iTunes.
That's right. And huge thank you and shout out to Rick Houston and
Scene Vault.
Yeah, that is a podcast that is like a can't miss every. I keep adding on a few of these can't misses.
If you want to learn about NASCAR, there's only one place to really do that, and that is the Scene Vault.
I feel like I keep adding on all these like can't miss podcasts every week, and some of those that I used to think were can't miss, like they kind of fall off the bottom.
Flutter out. They flutter out.
But Scene Vault, that's one that
and the Mark Martin podcast, his anthology of his career that he's doing right now is so awesome.
Yeah. So, Rick, tell us what's coming up next and where the folks can find you.
At the Scene Vault on Twitter. We're also on Facebook, and you can find the podcast on basically any of the podcasting platforms. It's always kind of interesting. I find new platforms all the time that I wasn't familiar or that I didn't know that we were on, but there we are.
All you got to do is Google yourself, and it gets weird.
and it definitely gets weird.
No.
Yeah. So with that, we're going to shut this thing down. Sherwin, this has been awesome. Rick, hang on the phone with just for a minute. But, dude, I can't not wait for this weekend. We're going to have a boatload of fun.
Yeah, I love Darlington.
I'm kind of nervous about it. Are we still recording?
We are.
We'll still be recording.
Okay, never mind. No, seriously, I will say this. It's the first race I've been to, actually attended in quite some time. So I don't know if I'm going to stick out like a sore thumb or what, but it's going to be cool to be able to have this newspaper at the racetrack and to see some of the reactions that I think that it's going to get. I had somebody tweet today, as a matter of fact, and it really did make the whole process kind of worth it. The person tweeted in and said that they were already jacked up about going to the racetrack and going to the race and taking their kids to the racetrack. But then they said that to know that they were going to be able to crack open a brand new issue of Grand National Scene just put it over the top for them. And that meant so much to me because it really did make, all of that work worthwhile.
And I know you might say you're nervous about it or whatever else, but I think the amount of work and the amount of hurdles that y'all have gone through to do this, you're going to see some serious positive feedback.
Going to reap some benefits.
Yeah,
well,
super excited about that. Sherwin, let's start making this thing official. With that, y'all know where to find us. PETMPodcast.com, at PETM Podcast on the Twitter handle. As always, I'm Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace at Tailgate Mayor.
And I'm at Pregame Engineer and at Andrew L. Sherwin on the Instagrams.
And we can't wait to see y'all at Darlington. We can't wait to talk to y'all next week about how much fun it was to see you.
Oh, and we're going to meet Sarah Scott for the first time.
That's right.
Follower of the podcast.
So, real excited about that. Real excited about the weekend. Y'all go look up, try to find you some Scene Vault magazine. If you can't find the hard copy, be sure to follow old Rick and Steve at the Scene Vault. And I think it's, or whatever it was.
Yeah, the Scene Vault.
Yeah.
You'll find it. You'll get it. It'll be there.
Yeah. So, looking forward to next week. We'll talk to y'all then.
We are NASCAR.
There we go. That's a wrap. Rick, that is everything that will be on iTunes. We are still live on YouTube. So the folks, a few folks who like to join in with us, and you've got a bunch of shout-outs and accolades. Thanks, Rick. You own it, Rick. Thank you. So the PTM Posse is as excited as we were to have.
This is the part of the show where you're allowed to cuss.
No, it's that's been super fun, man. Appreciate you being on, and I'm excited for you, really more than anything, to be at a race like you said for the first time in a while, and really see
maybe have a chance to meet you. That would be pretty cool.
Well, being able to meet you and. If nothing else, just seeing the race. It's so. I think I feel like you're going to be just super excited, and the fact that it's Darlington, just be right back in the swing of things.
Yeah,
it's riding a bike. I guess I was going to say that on the show actually. That hey, it's riding a bike. You'll be right back into it and be excited. So awesome.
Well, I'm looking forward to the fact that I'm actually going to have something to do. There's nothing worse than going to a racetrack and just standing around twiddling your thumbs. And, that's probably one of the biggest reasons why I haven't gone back is, I don't really have a role or a purpose. But this weekend, if nothing else, I'm going to have a paper route to kind of hand out some of these newspapers and make sure that people get it in their hands. So I hope that we have enough papers.
Yeah.
Well, I almost hope that you don't. in a respect that, like, I want it. Yeah, I want it to mean something for you, and for it to be a commodity. Yeah, and it to mean something to people that actually get their hands on it, because there aren't any other people out there, Rick, that appreciate what you're doing more than we do. I guarantee you that.
I appreciate that. I really do.
I'm so excited. The whole weekend is culminating in a few key points here where we're going to tweet up. We're getting the Grand National Scene magazine. We're watching the race, obviously, all that stuff. Man, I'm so pumped for the weekend.
Yeah, we love Darlington to death.
Yeah, and to think
Have
that I
you
got
actually
to.
been there before?
Yeah, this is going to be our 5th weekend at Darlington.
Okay. All right,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. So, and we don't intend to ever miss another fall Darlington.
Yeah, I mean, Bristol
summer.
just fell off the map for us because it's going to move to September, and we're going to struggle with college football on that because we're also huge college football fans and have season tickets to Georgia Tech, and it's going to be a challenge. We might get to a Bristol weekend every now and again, but like we're going to miss being at Bristol. We made it. I think you and I have both made it 11 years in a row.
Has it been 11? How old are we then?
It was
Jeez.
12. It was 12 for me.
Yeah, because you went to that one with Colin or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, here's the deal. Since you guys have the podcast, I would imagine that you could get media credentials, and if you can get media credentials, get a press box, get press box access, you won't think twice about missing a Georgia Tech game ever again. Because the view from the Bristol press box, very high above turns 3 and 4. I've always imagined that being a lot like the view from heaven.
I like that.
It is the place to watch a race.
Yeah,
I like that.
By far my favorite press box view.
Yeah, well, we watch from 1 and 2, 50 rows up, and Colwickie is basically where we've been for 10 years.
Yeah.
And
we straddle that weird line between fan and media, if you will.
Right.
And so me and Sherman will talk before we go to a race, and we'll even say, do we want to go as fans or media? And so far, we've pretty much agreed every time that we should go as fans or as media or whatever. But we've enjoyed. It's the devil you know is what it is.
Yeah,
it's when we go as fans. Boy, we have some fun.
Yeah, we like to have a good time. I have a relationship with Bristol. I am pretty sure we could get media passes there without a lot of effort. We've had media passes at Michigan and at Atlanta, and we probably could get it at Darlington, but it's like, sometimes you just want to be a race fan, and have too many beers,
and that's stopping you from being a media member. How?
well. So from what I understand about what I heard about Steve Wade, I don't think that necessarily matters.
Oh no! I'm pleading the fifth. I know nothing.
Yeah, you don't have to. Yeah, I mean, you can totally deny and just say, "Hey, you're a liar." But yeah, I mean, you're right. It's I think we've been to a few tweet ups where we were drinking beer but also had media passes, and and they were like, "All right, well, you better keep it in check."
Yeah,
but we're just being amateurs. We just kind of have to be as respectful as we can, and not, make sure. Like, it's one thing to make a mistake as a human being. It's another thing to make a mistake and burn a bridge. And we've never wanted to burn a bridge.
Oh yeah. I mean, we've been in church clothes and in ready to go. So I hear you. Rick, it has been so much fun. I know we probably kept you up past what we had promised before, but boy, we just love we love talking about this stuff. Have you talked with David Smith? I'm sure you have, with David Smith from the I guess with all the stats that he does. What is his website?
Posreg Podcast.
Yeah. Have you talked to him?
I have not.
So no. I think y'all would actually get along.
You would enjoy
really well.
it. You should ask him to be a guest on your show when you're not doing like straight up history stuff, because he is an absolute genius.
All the stats and stuff. I was. I mean, obviously, I'm excited for all of our guests. That one was one where, like, we get to talk nerd stuff, just like with you. Like, hey, we get to be nerds for a little while. This will be fun.
Yeah.
And so
I know you'd love it because you're you're a NASCAR nerd, but you're a NASA nerd too. So like you're like math is fun. Yeah. So consider having David Smith on your show at some point in the future, maybe in the off season if you've already got your stuff all lined up. But he's extremely intelligent, and he has like the sabermetrics version.
That's what it is.
NASCAR.
Yeah. His sabermetrics stuff and just being able to talk stats. Hey, tell me. We asked him. We said, "Who's the best driver?" And then we said, "What's the best track?" And just throwing that stuff at him. It's really fun to hear his responses and all that.
Yeah.
So anyway, Rick, don't want to keep you too long here. So appreciate you being on. And the dog is calling you, man.
Dog's calling.
My boys are coming in, so the dog's going to start barking here in just a second. I'm sorry.
Rick,
all good.
We really appreciate you giving us so much of your time for the third time. It's so much fun being connected with you and all the stuff that you're doing. And it's a lot of fun to get an opportunity to talk to someone like you that knows so much history about NASCAR. Like I don't know that we can convey our appreciation for you giving us your time, which is why I hope we get a chance to meet in Darlington and shake her hand and say thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I truly do appreciate that, and I appreciate the support that you give us online, and certainly the compliments and all that. And I respect what you guys are doing. You doing it. You're doing it not necessarily for the pay as a job or whatever, but
we give all the money away. We're idiots.
Sport. Yeah. So I thank you for what you've done for us.
Absolutely.
Well,
hats are off to you, brother.
Yeah, you've done a lot for us. You've probably done more for us than we've done for you. So thank you very much.
Okay, man.
We'll talk to you soon, Rick.
Okay. We'll see you down there.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Y'all, there's Rick Houston. It's funny to me, Sherwin, because I have I know some folks that are like marketing people, right, at work.
Yeah.
And they're like, we just get to talking. Once you get friendly, I don't just open with, "Hey, I got a NASCAR podcast." We get to talking and whatever else, and they're like, "Oh, have you done this? Have you done this? Do you have blah blah? What's your revenue stream? Yada yada." And I'm like, "Yeah, we get this, and we just give it all away because it's fun." And so,
because Jensen Jorgensen.
Yeah, it's
and Jorgensen Racing and Taylor.
Yeah,
they're awesome.
So,
let's just give them all the monies and let them race cars.
And so I feel like I blow their minds sometimes in that, like, what are you doing? Like, yeah, that's what we do, man. Are you kidding me? This is so much fun. Look at how much fun we had 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half.
What in the hell would you and I do with $1,600? I mean, in reality.
Yeah, I mean, it would get put somewhere that it's just like, oh, that's just
I guess
money
that might pay for all the races we go to, maybe.
Yeah, but I mean,
but it's a lot more fun to do with it.
That's already in the budget. That's the thing. It's like this is already budgeted. This is already
and
spent.
we'd have to market differently because people would be like, "Oh, you're just taking in money."
Yeah.
But we don't just take in money. We give it.
Right.
PETM Posse.
Yeah, y'all are the best. If you're still hanging out with us for whatever reason,
for sure, you're
thanks
definitely
for hanging out.
in the posse.
Let's see. That should make it so it's on iTunes now. Let me double check. So the way that I test this is I have my iPhone that is not connected at all to like any of our internal stuff. This is just more, can someone see that we have an episode? And indeed we do. There it is.
iTunes
209 is up. And running.
iTunes, YouTube, Podbean, you can find our stuff everywhere. We had a great episode tonight with Rick Houston, who is a magnificent historian of NASCAR and a huge proponent of the sport, and there's nothing better than that. There's not anything better than that.
That's right. All right, y'all. We're going to shut this thing down and do our thing. I've got a couple more little housekeeping items here, and then we'll be all done. So thank you again for joining. We hope y'all had as much fun as we did, and we will see y'all next week, and hopefully see you at Darlington. Give us a shout out.
Yeah, come to Darlington. We'll be there.
Woo! See ya.
Woo!